Deals keep stalling? Here's the fix it now variable you're not tracking. You have a deal that seemed like a sure thing. The prospect was engaged, the call went well, and now nothing. They're not saying no, they're just not moving. That's not a prospect problem. That's a sales cycle length problem, the fourth variable in the sales velocity equation. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly which part of that variable is broken in your pipeline and what to do about it. If you appreciate me making this type of content, let me know by gently tapping that like button. Here we go. I grew EAR specialty composites from 10 million to 43 million in revenue and grew gross margins from 12% to 55%, resulting in an acquisition by a Fortune 100 company for $123 million. Every slow deal I ever lost had the same root cause. Here's what it was. The problem. Stalling deals are not a prospect problem, and they are not bad luck. According to Forrester's 2024 State of Business Buying Report, 86% of B2B purchases stall during the buying process. And nearly half of B2B sales leaders say their sales cycles got longer in the past 12 months. That means the problem isn't getting better on its own, it's getting worse. More follow ups, more patience, more hoping the prospect comes back around. None of that works because it treats the symptom, not the variable. The sales velocity equation. There's an equation I use with every business owner I work with. It's called the sales velocity equation, and it looks like this. Sales velocity equals the number of opportunities times win rate times average deal value divided by sales cycle length. 4 variables. Every revenue problem you have lives inside one of those 4 numbers. In the last video in this series, we covered win rate, the percentage of leads that actually become clients. Today is sales cycle length, the 4th variable and the one that quietly drains revenue without anyone noticing it until the numbers stop adding up. Sales cycle length is simply the average time it takes a deal to go from first conversation to close. And what makes it dangerous is this. A long sales cycle length doesn't just delay revenue. It inflates your cost of sale, pulls your attention away from better opportunities, and gives your competitors time to get in front of your prospect while you're still waiting. And the cost compounds fast. If your average deal is worth $5,000 and your sales cycle runs 90 days when it should run 45, you're not just waiting longer, you're carrying half your annual pipeline in limbo at any given time. Every week a deal sits without moving is a week of revenue that didn't land. Most business owners feel this as cash flow anxiety. What it actually is a sales cycle length problem showing up in their bank account. When sales cycle length breaks, it almost always breaks in one of 2 specific ways. Each has a different cause and a different fix. Subvariable 1, urgency anchor gap. The first way sales cycle length breaks is what I call the urgency anchor gap. This is where the prospect understood your solution, but never clearly quantified what it was costing them to not solve the problem. When a prospect doesn't have a specific number or a specific feeling of pain attached to the cost of inaction, there's nothing pulling them toward a decision. Your price is real and immediate. Their problem feels tolerable, so they wait. A business owner has a strong first call. The prospect seems interested, and then follow ups produce nothing. Not a no, just silence. And the business owner assumes the prospect changed their mind, got busy, or found something cheaper. In most cases, none of that is what happened. What happened is the prospect never built urgency in the first conversation because the seller never helped them calculate what the problem was actually costing them. The fix is earlier and more specific discovery, not more follow up after the fact. The first conversation, before you ever mention your solution, you need the prospect to articulate in their own words what it's costing them per month, per quarter, or per year to leave the problem unsolved. When they say that number out loud, they've created their own urgency. You didn't manufacture it and then try to sell it to them. They own it. And that changes everything about how fast a deal moves. In practice, it sounds like this. Early in the first conversation, before you've said anything about your solution, you ask, what does this problem cost you right now per month or per quarter? Then you stop talking. Let them calculate. Let them say the number. If they can't put a number on it, ask a more specific version. How many hours a week does your team spend working around this? Or what does a lost deal cost you on average? The goal isn't to interrogate them, it's to help them quantify what's already happening. Once they've said the number, they own the urgency. And a prospect who owns their own urgency doesn't need to be followed up with, they follow up with you. I learned this firsthand in my Los Angeles territory. One Friday afternoon, I dropped in unannounced on a client I hadn't spoken to in a while. She brought me back to her office and told me they were doing vendor reviews, and our company was on the firing line. I was lucky. She gave me enough advance notice to work through a punch list of requirements and protect our supplier status. But the lesson hit hard. Things had been changing on her side: processes, specifications, quality criteria, relationships, and I had no visibility to any of it. I hadn't built a communication channel that kept those critical items current. Once I did, with a structured update path, confirmations, and accountability on both sides, the uncertainty that had been slowing her buying process disappeared. Orders became more predictable and the relationship strengthened, and my numbers came back. The urgency was always there on her end. I just hadn't uncovered it because I hadn't built the process to surface it. Subvariable 2, staged commitment gap. The second way sales cycle length breaks is what I call the staged commitment gap. This is where the seller tries to move from first conversation to close in one or two steps, skipping micro commitments that build the trust required for a decision. Every sale has a natural sequence of stages. For example, awareness, interest, evaluation, decision. Each stage has a logical next step that moves the deal forward. When a seller allows the skipping of any of those steps or doesn't define them, the prospect has no structured path to yes. Without a structured path, they default to inertia, not because they don't want to buy, but because they don't know what's supposed to happen next. I had this happen with Zeki, a manager at a new Hexacom customer. We were working on a packaging solution for their window blinds shipping line. Zeki decided to skip the testing phase entirely and go straight to a production order, a large one. He was confident. I went along with it. That was my mistake. Our factory ran into problems producing his order to spec. We delivered it late. His production schedule fell behind, and every deal in my pipeline got neglected while I scrambled to save the deal and the relationship with Zeki. Everyone lost time, money, and credibility. What I should have done is offer an alternative, a smaller pilot run that validated the design before committing to full production. That's a defined milestone. It protects the customer, it protects your process, and it keeps the deal moving on solid ground. When you let a customer skip a stage because they're confident or in a hurry, you've handed them the risk and kept the responsibility. That's not a sales process, that's a favor that usually ends badly. A fix is a defined milestone at the end of every single sales conversation. Not, I'll follow up next week. A specific commitment to a specific action, a demo, a working session, a stakeholder meeting, a proposal review call with a specific date attached. When you build those milestones into your process consistently, deals move. When you don't, they stall. Quick break. If you want to know exactly where your sales cycle length is breaking down in your specific pipeline, I've built a free diagnostic that identifies which of the four sales velocity variables is costing you the most revenue right now. It takes about 5 minutes. Scan the QR code here now to find out. The link is also in the description and the pinned comment below. go.sologrowth-ai.com/diagnostic. How to diagnose your break. So, how do you know which of the two breaks you have? Look at where deals go dark in your cycle. If deals are stalling before you ever get to a proposal, prospects seem interested but never advance, that's almost always the urgency anchor gap. They never felt the cost of their problem clearly enough to create their own momentum. If deals are stalling after the proposal, after a strong conversation, that's almost always the staged commitment gap. You moved to the close without building the right milestones, and the deal lost its structure. In both cases, the fix starts with tracking. Here's how to do it. Every week, write down three numbers: the number of active deals in your pipeline, the stage each deal is currently in, and how many days it's been sitting at that stage. You don't need a CRM to start. A spreadsheet works. What you're looking for is the stage where deals consistently stop moving. That's your break. Once you can see it clearly, the cause follows, and the fix follows from the cause, not from more follow up, not from discounting, and not from waiting. The reason your deals keep stalling has nothing to do with the prospect and everything to do with which part of the sales cycle length is broken in your process. Find the break, apply the right fix, track the result every week. That's how the number moves. If you want to go deeper on why leads aren't converting in the first place before they ever get to a stalled deal, I made a video on exactly that. You can check it out by clicking right here.